We're 100% live right now.
We live?
We are live right now on the YouTube. I got
God.
dogs. I got dogs on the screen. Dogs are on the screen with white socks on, not straight toe.
The dogs are barking.
The dogs are on the screen. Dogs on the shirt. Dogs coming back Saturday. That's the last thing. These Clemson boys want to hear. Dabo, listen here, boy. You ain't got shit for me, boy.
This ain't what you think it is.
Yeah.
Hold on,
You're a good Christian man. I'll tell you one name that's not in the Bible. That's Kirby Smart.
That's right.
I'll tell you one damn name that's not in the Bible. What?
You cropped out my video accent over here.
You have something? Oh, okay. Let me hold up. I can do this. I'm the producer of this good show right here. Let me make you a little bit. Oh God, I'm struggling, fighting for my life.
I can also move that.
There we go.
Look at him.
Look at me work. Oh, wait, I can't go up no more than that. Does that look okay to you?
Hell yeah.
Now we're locked in. You like my video? Except the one lone bush light in the fridge back here.
It's gonna be empty in a minute.
It's going to. Hey, here's up.
Hey, boy.
Hey, boy.
Oh my gosh. Well, as long as I keep my bookie up, my screen looks perfect.
Go to ESPN, but we casted the ghost in this bitch.
I'm talking about. Hallelujah. I wonder if I can, split screen.
I'm surprised mine looks so good because I ain't got no light. I have no.
I ain't got nothing either. But yours looks good. Mine doesn't.
I feel like your room's also darker than mine.
It's very dark.
You ain't got no light on that bitch.
I got a light on the ceiling, but I'd look. You wouldn't even be able to see me like I was in the snow.
I had to express to Savannah how important this was. I was telling her about it. She was like, why do y'all do that?
Because it's fun.
I was like, because it's fun.
Why? The question is, why not?
Yeah, the question is, why not? It gives you a good reason to get on there with your fella, talk about sport. Look at me. I lost focus for a minute. Back. Okay, we're good.
That don't look terrible over here.
No, I think it looks good. I think everything looks right. Got some kid stuff going on. My stuff has turned from last time we did this. I had a beautiful game room, and now I got a guest bedroom. That's what. I can't say married life because I'm not married, but
about
a lot of things change.
It's a different life.
All of a sudden, you can note apparently a 16 by 20 autographed Martin Prado poster can't go in the guest bedroom. So,
yeah, for some reason, a Bryce Harper fat head don't work above the bed.
Yeah, it works for me. Really not. Somebody should be a Bryce Harper fat head above the bed. I'm in there. Give me 30 seconds in and out.
I swear, all I need is 30 seconds.
No, I feel like I renamed our podcast, by the way. It was no longer. This is episode 1 of Peach State Tailgate Revamped.
Oh, let's go, baby. Peach State Tailgate Revamped, soon to be, perhaps, maybe rebranded. We don't know.
Yeah, we're still kind of figuring that out.
We'll find out. Different vibe.
I think that the best way we do this now, I'm trying to go for more of a lenient, like a more laid back, different approach to this as we did before. We touch any subject we want to in the world. We can focus on sports. You want to talk about movies, anything like that. I think we just kind of dive in.
Just let it rip.
Just let it ride. I think it's going to be the best thing. I'm going to try to, every episode, I'm going to drink me a couple Busch Lights and just kind of
kick back.
Kind of ride the wave. I'm sitting here looking at my screen right here. Dan Lanning's the first thing I see. When I look at college football and I see Dan Lanning's face, that's a good damn thing to see.
That's a good thing.
We love Dan.
First thing I see when I look at my screen is this juicy bet, North Dakota State.
Yeah, I need to pull up my bookie too. I'll pull that up in a second. I don't have no bets. I've not looked into this. I'm going to make sure I mention that at the beginning of this because this is the most raw I've ever went into a podcast before in my life.
Well, the betting side, that's where my research is.
I have not done one bit of research on any side of anything.
I've been heavy on the bet side. And then as far as so are you wanting to do schedule record predictions?
And we can do a slight little record prediction. We just go through and skim through how we feel about the top 10 or top 25. I don't have no predictions. I don't have no research done whatsoever on anything. So
Let's just talk about the damn top 10 to start the year.
okay, because I feel like it's gonna be the best, easiest way to kind of jump into.
I agree.
Those are one of those things you can kind of jump into and not really have.
Yeah, because I'll be honest with you, I can't do a deep dive on South Carolina football right now.
I couldn't tell you. I'm pretty sure their quarterback's name is Lenora Sellers.
I would have guessed Matt White.
I'm assuming. Let me see if I'm right. Lenora Sellers. He might be Arkansas. No, he is South Carolina starting quarterback right now. 19-year-old Lenora Sellers, 6'3", 245 pounds of pure muscle.
I don't even know who's starting for Notre Dame this year.
Notre Dame starting quarterback is Riley Leonard.
Oh, that's right. They did have Riley Leonard.
Yep.
Who's starting for Michigan?
Orgy. Alex Orgy or whatever his name is.
Good name.
Yep. There's an orgy in the end zone.
Sounds like a party.
I think that's their start. I don't know what his first name is. Something Orgy. Like I said, Nate Johnson is going to be the starter at Vanderbilt this year. Can never be more excited than that.
Oh, bad Nate.
Love Nate. Watched him run like a 45-yard touchdown in with Utah last year. I think that's the only play I've ever seen him play in his entire college football life. But still, I'm a big fan. 95 speed for quarterback in college football, 25, the fastest quarterback in the game, by the way. So
95?
Yeah, fastest quarterback in the game.
So whatever ended up being the deal with Ohio State, have they just come out and said, like, Will Howard's our guy?
I think so. Who else do they got over there? I mean, they got Julian Sayin, right? Is that their
Yeah,
guy?
they took Sayin from Bama.
Yeah.
Aaron Nolan from Georgia. Not from Georgia UGA, but the state of Georgia.
Yeah.
I
know Howard was all conference last year in the Big 12, right? I think he was the first team All-American in the Big 12 or some shit.
Yeah, but I always thought he was kind of mid.
I thought he was too. I mean, he can't. To be fair, he can't be no worse than what they had last year. Whatever that asshole's name was.
That was terrible. Yeah, that was pitiful.
What was his name last year?
I can't even tell you.
Who was Ohio State's quarterback last year? Kyle McCord.
That's right.
Kyle McCord was the worst Ohio State quarterback we've seen in like 20 years.
I can't think. I'm trying to think of who they've had that I didn't like. It's been a minute.
You had Cardale, Terrell Pryor.
Well, you have Pryor, right?
Yep, Pryor.
And then Braxton Miller, right?
Braxton Miller, he was good.
He was a dog, and then he got hurt, and then you got JT and Cardale.
Yep.
And then you went
Dewey.
Yeah, but there was somebody before Dewey, right?
I'm trying to remember that one video that Burrow was in, and he was like the last guy. There's two quarterbacks that are hyping up, and I'm pretty sure it was
Dewey beat Burrow out.
Yeah, but there was somebody else, and I can't remember who was in front of them.
Who was that?
That would have been what, 2017, 2018,
16 or 17.
Yeah,
Because Burrow's senior year was 19.
Yeah,
And that was LSU, so that means he was there.
I think it's Barrett. I think. Don't quote me. I don't know.
I feel like I'm drawing a blank.
17 was JT Barrett. Yeah, JT Barrett was their quarterback in 17. In their first game, Dwayne Haskins actually led them in yards, but every other game than that, it was JT Barrett.
So what? Did it go Barrett, then Cardale, then back to Barrett?
I think Cardale was earlier than that.
Cardale was the third stringer that year, right?
I think Cardale Jones was before Barrett.
But wasn't that the year? What am I thinking of?
Yeah, Cardale Jones graduated in 2015.
Was it Barrett wasn't there in 15?
So Cardale Jones was at Ohio State his last year was 2015. I think JT Barrett Was that there was yeah, he was there from 13 to 17, then Dwayne Haskins, and then Fields.
Yeah. So it was, but wasn't JT? He was the second string quarterback the year they won the Natty with Cardell, right?
Yes, yeah.
So because Braxton got hurt,
Yeah.
JT came in, he got hurt, and then Cardell led him to the championship. And then when they came back the next year, they moved Braxton to receiver.
Yep.
And then I don't know if he got drafted, but he got signed as a receiver in the NFL. I think he played for the Texans for a few years.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I don't know what happened to him.
And then JT came back after his senior year and started. Then after that, that's whenever Dewey won the job.
Yeah.
And then Fields came in. Then after Fields,
Stroud.
Yep, then Stroud. Then we got to the terrible days. Now we're in the white boy stage. And now
Will hired.
we're going from Kyle and then a Will. Wow, we are really doing it there at Ohio State.
We're doing great. A great job.
Who knows?
And a Julian right behind him.
Yeah, a Julian saying. Holy cow, what's going on? Fire Ryan Day right now.
Have you seen the Jackson Dart rumors?
What about him? That he's going to be the best quarterback in college football this year?
No, that supposedly he tore his meniscus or something, and they're keeping it on DL.
Oh, that would not be good because Ole Miss is my sleeper national championship team this year.
Oh, I've been seeing it on social media.
I ain't gonna lie, Kiffin kind of tore that transfer portal up this year.
I love Kiffin, dude. I don't care what people say.
Kiffin kind of tore that. I mean, who was that kid they got from Walter Nolan? That's the one that's been popping up on my thing. I'm like, oh, they got Walter Nolan from A&M.
I don't know. I think it's a bunch of BS. Oh, who knows? I don't know. I'm not buying into it. I think Ole Miss is gonna be good too. I'm with you.
I mean, I would put. To be honest with you, I want to save some of this stuff for the podcast. I'm a Georgia homer, but I do have some concerns that I'm going to express when it comes time. I don't. Some big losses that we hit this year that I don't know if it's going to be quite easily replaceable as the ones we've hit in the past. I'm just going to say that.
I thought we done started the podcast.
Oh no! I got you right here. You ready? You want to do an introduction, Kenny, or how do you want to do this?
That's fine.
All right, I got you on a countdown. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back. Peach State Tailgate Sports Podcast. I'm Kenny Cochran.
I'm Jake Ewell. Also, it's Revamped Peach State Tailgate.
Yeah, Peach State Tailgate Revamped. Damn, Model 2.
Model 2, V2. We in here, baby. We locked in.
Yeah, recently revamped, soon to be rebranded. Maybe, I don't know. We'll figure it out. We're just here. If you've been live, we just had a deep dive into the history of Ohio State. I don't even know how we got there. Neither one of us are Ohio State fans, but we're trying to figure out how we got from like the giant plethora of elite quarterbacks, starting from Braxton Miller to C.J. Stroud, and we landed on Kyle McCord and Will Howard.
Yeah.
So, but regardless, that's where we are. Welcome to college football, baby. Football season's back. We got, 3 days until week one? Well, I guess week 1 kicks off tomorrow, but like week one kicks off Saturday.
Yeah, no, I'm excited, man. I honestly feel like week 1 was. I feel like every year week 0 gets more and more hype of being like it's almost like a cult following of week 0. It's like one of those things. It's like, oh, this year we actually had a big game. I feel like the Florida State game, Georgia Tech, was a lot bigger than what we've seen in the past, and mostly because if you look at it,
more games last year.
I think so because this year we had 4 games. I think
it wasn't much.
I think it was 4. I think they had 1 for every time slot.
I mean, I was just itching to get some bets out there, and like the only teams I can muster up enough courage to bet on, or the only games I guess, was the Florida State Tech game and the SMU game.
Didn't SMU win? I think it was a close one, right?
They won. They did not cover.
Yeah,
they were down the entire game.
Yeah, I didn't watch that. I spent my Saturday. Me and Savannah went to the damn Trader Joe's Saturday morning. Drove up to Atlanta, Trader Joe's, picked out about $45, which buys you like 20 different things at Trader Joe's, by the way. Cheap ass place. Picked out about. We got like 15, 20 different snacks. Throw them in the microwave. Orange chicken. We got all types of stuff. It was pretty fun. And then we got back just in time. I think I did miss opening kickoff. I kind of felt a little bit ashamed of that. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Got back, caught the last 3 quarters of the game. Let me just, you want to start off right there, Kenny? You want to start off and talk about that Georgia Tech Florida State game and just give a little bit of in-state respect to what we saw from them boys in Atlanta?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a little in-state respect. I think overall, I spent the entire game thinking, and you know, before I dive into this, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you that I was on Georgia Tech money line off the rip. First bet of the year. I was I'm talking about bricked up to bet on Georgia Tech, and I've never wanted to bet on Georgia Tech ever before in my life unless it was to not cover the spread against Georgia. Um, so for me to bet on Georgia Tech in general, let alone to win a football game, let alone against a top 10 football team, was a big deal. But I think it was more so for me just calling Florida State's bluff. I don't think Florida State was ever a top 10 team. Obviously, last year they were when they had, a fully healthy roster, not in a 60 something to nothing bowl game or whatever that score was against us. But looking at this Florida State team, they just didn't look very impressive on paper. And I thought they get a lot of hype too. And it was kind of weird because if you watched College Game Day or watched any of the pregame shows or listened to anybody talking about them, and it didn't matter if it was Nick Saban, Pat McAfee, Kirk Herbstreit, anybody, they were all just bouncing off the walls about Florida State. I think the only person to pick Georgia Tech to win the football game was Sheamus. Shout out WWE. Um, so that was kind of interesting, but I don't know. I was never high on Florida State coming into the year, so I saw that. I will say, and I'll let you do your little analysis because that's pretty much all I'm gonna say about it. But um, good payday to start off the year betting wise. Georgia Tech money line obviously paid out. They won the football game. It was awesome. Had a little parlay. Had Georgia Tech money line and SMU to cover the spread against whatever School of the Blind they were playing, and they decided to mess around and barely win the game. So that didn't work. That would have been a really nice payday, but nonetheless, Georgia Tech money line. I appreciate it. Last thing I'll say, really, really, really disappointing game by DJ Amalakabalaba.
I think you nailed that. I think the pronunciation was on fire. Now it was a fun game. I will say. I think it was Nick Saban said that in his mind, Florida State has a top 3 roster in college football. But then you watched the Florida State last year that had so much success, and you paid attention to it. A lot of the success came from the quarterback, Jordan Travis, one of the best quarterbacks in college football last year. Dude was amazing. And then you look at the guys he was throwing the ball to: Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson. Guess what? All 3 of those guys are gone. All of them are playing in the NFL this coming up year and going to be very successful in the NFL, I believe.
No doubt.
You replace Jordan Travis with DJU. Ugh. You should have stayed at Oregon State, buddy. It's a different league when you come over here to the South. On the East Coast, we don't play around with that bull crap. Should have stayed over there on the West where you get a little easier. The only person I noticed from Florida State last year that obviously I don't watch every single game. There's some defensive players like Ventrell Cypress that was at Illinois a couple years ago and transferred over to Florida State, cornerback. I realized he was still there. Roydell Williams is the only player I really recognize that came back from Florida State, just being a casual watcher of them, and he had 12 carries for 38 yards. So I'm pretty sure he was their starting back last year as well. This Georgia Tech team might have been one of the just how they played this first game looked like one of the toughest non-SEC teams I've watched in recent memory. That team is tough, from quarterback to running back to defense to front 7, their offensive line. That team plays physical ball. And if they keep that going, they could win the ACC. No doubt in my mind. Because you look at the teams that have such success in the past in the ACC, Clemson. Clemson did it playing physical football in a conference that did not play physical. Georgia Tech is trying to do that, and Brent Key is really, really building them boys up. So I'm excited to see what they have to go on for the rest of the future. Also, before I'm over with, shout out Haynes King. Absolute dog, running with his shoulder down, fighting for every extra yard he can get. That kid played a game.
And the disrespect. I'm talking about Haynes King marched down the field first drive of the game on the 1 yard line, put in the backup to run it in.
Crazy.
And everybody's got their formations. Everybody's got their different strategies, right? I mean, you got a 240-pound, 6'5" chunk of meat that you can throw back there to take the snap and run it up there. I get it. But when you got Haynes King, at the end of the game, he had 4,000 carries. and ran behind his shoulder pads the entire game. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, he's able to get it done in the short yardage game. Let the dude work.
Yeah, no, Haynes balled out. I was very, very impressed with what I saw. I mean, he was efficient passing. Obviously, I think he only threw the ball 15, 16 times. It
Yeah.
wasn't much of a throwing game from them. And like I said, the way that Georgia Tech played this game was more of a physical, just we're going to beat you in the face every single chance we can get. And that's exactly what they did to Florida State. Now, I do feel bad because I am a fan of Mike Norvell. I think what he has done at Florida State over the past couple of years has been very impressive. But I also think that's what was remember Dan Lanning a couple of years ago at Florida when he had that really, really good crew come through with Tony and Pitts and Trask and all those guys? I'm a little bit nervous that we might see the same exact thing happen with Mike Norvell down at Florida State.
Yeah.
It's just you have one big group of guys, and if you don't recruit the same, and obviously this is one of those podcasts that I don't think we didn't really do a lot of in-depth analysis on what we're looking at. I don't have no idea about Florida State's recruiting class, but I will say I'm looking through the top recruits right now, and they do have a single 5-star on here. So that's not very good.
And back to the Georgia Tech thing too, like you just mentioned, with them running the football and Haynes only throwing the ball, a limited amount of times. I'm curious to see how that physicality comes into play later in the year, because all you heard leading up to this game was obviously the question mark at quarterback with DJ. Like, you don't know what kind of ball you're going to get from DJ. We saw a 400-yard game from him taking over for Trevor Lawrence when he was in Clemson, and then the next year he looked like a bag of balls. Dude sucked. So, and then he goes to Oregon State, right, and has a limited success, but like he looked okay, right? I mean, he didn't like a horrible quarterback. And then, I mean, this was prototypical year 2 DJ, right? Like first year as a starter, coming out here and having absolutely zero confidence, has nothing behind anything that he's throwing. I mean, underthrown balls, overthrown balls. And to be honest with you, I mean, and you know this if you're a football fan, but especially in a big game, especially in a week 1 game or a week 0 game, when this is like you're dialed in on who you're playing and how you're going to script this game for multiple weeks. You don't just have 1 week to prepare for this team. That first drive, completely scripted. Like, they knew exactly what plays they were going to call, how many plays they were going to call, what we were going to do if we get in this situation versus this situation, this personnel group versus this personnel group. He looked lights out in the first drive.
Yeah.
But as soon as it got to the point where it was like, okay, well, let's step back a little bit, see what we're working with, see what they're giving us, and take what we can get, it was like he had absolutely zero idea what was going on in that football game. And so, yeah, you had the question mark at quarterback, but all we heard was how great this Florida State front seven was going to be. And they just got bullied by Georgia Tech the entire game.
I have stats right here. Georgia Tech starting running back Jamal Haynes, 11 carries, 75 yards, 2 tuds, an average of 6.8 yards per carry.
Crazy, dude.
And this is a kid that I think was 5'10", like 175.
And I'm looking at Georgia Tech's schedule too. I don't know if you've looked at it. They got week 1 this Saturday against Georgia State. Then they travel to Syracuse the following week, and then they play VMI at home. It's going to be week 4, game 5 for them before they're playing an upper echelon program in Louisville, September 21st. So I don't know if we're going to even be able to figure out what kind of team this Georgia Tech team is until that Louisville game, if Louisville's even good.
Yeah, and honestly, looking at this Georgia Tech, I'm looking at their schedule right now. Could I see what we're talking 10-2 on a high end? Obviously, that's being aggressive. Could I see a 9-3, a 10-2 season from this Georgia Tech team?
I mean, dude, I think it's more likely that they start the year 6-1 than with more than one loss.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm looking at, like, if I'm looking at it, I look at Georgia, obviously, is definitely a loss coming from Georgia Tech. But I look at the rest of their schedule. I mean, obviously, you see Miami playing Miami at home. They're playing all of their big games at home other than Louisville.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's at home. Miami's at home. NC State's at home. Notre Dame's going to be tough. Notre Dame has a lot more recruits. They're probably a lot more talented. They said the same thing about Florida State. Notre Dame has a quarterback with Riley Leonard. I'm not going to say similar to DJ Uiagalelei, but Riley Leonard lit the world on fire for like two or 3 weeks with Duke last year and then fell off the face of the planet. So, like, I look at their schedule. Miami is a team that's always overrated, can never perform. Georgia Tech has a legit chance to be in that top 12 by the end of the year, and I know it's week 0, and I might be overreacting. But what we just now saw them do against the Florida State team that did lose talent last year, but was still very, very hyped up and had big name people saying they were a top tier team in college football is very, very impressive and cannot go unnoticed in, to me, a pretty weak ACC conference.
No, I agree. And I mean, you look at the first like actual. I mean, obviously Florida State was a test, but that game's past us. So starting now, the first actual test that they're going to get is going to be Syracuse September 7th. I'm assuming that Florida State's a better football team than Syracuse.
Yeah, Syracuse was up and down last year. We saw them play last year. I think Florida State's, or I'm sorry, Georgia Tech beat Syracuse 31-22. So,
and I don't know if Syracuse improved at all, but I know Tech did. I mean, Exhibit A, Florida State.
Yeah.
And then you go into, like you were just talking about, obviously you have the Louisville game. That's a question mark. We'll see what Louisville's working with. All right, that's probably going to be a decent test for them. But Duke, I mean, not only do you lose Riley Leonard, but Mike Elko's at A&M now.
That's true. And also, I don't want to revisit Syracuse, but you remember how we were talking about Ohio State quarterbacks earlier?
Yeah.
Our friend Kyle McCord, I believe, he transferred over to Syracuse. So.
Oh, yeah. I'll be looking at that tech line.
Yeah, definitely. But we couldn't get the ball to Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, for real. And then North Carolina, I don't know what North Carolina's got. I know UNC's, I'm looking at their opening line right here. They're favored by 2 against Minnesota. So, I mean, I don't know what they're working with at all. I mean, obviously they lose Drake May. But, yeah, I mean, you're really looking at Notre Dame. And that, what's that, week 8, week 7?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you're getting pretty deep into the season before you see anything. And obviously, a lot of this stuff, too, it's hard to really, really talk about because we haven't. Everybody, I want you to know, me and Kenny are kind of going to this podcast raw. Like, can't it stress this enough? I'm just now learning that North Carolina's quarterback is probably going to be Max Johnson this year. Did not even know he was still playing college football. So, like, I'm just being clear right now.
Like you legend.
Yeah, he is listed as potential as he's on their football roster, and I'm assuming that he's probably going to get a shot to be their starting quarterback. And not a bad choice, honestly. I like Mac Johnson. I think he's a good player. But it is, I don't know. I'm just so excited seeing Haynes King and DJ Uiagalelei playing in a game. Like, imagine this 2 years ago.
Oh, dude.
Like, imagine when DJ was at Clemson and Haynes King was at A&M, and like 3 years later, now we're looking at them at Georgia Tech and Florida State.
It's crazy to think. I mean, especially with the new transfer rules and how everything works with the portal. I mean, you're going to see these guys move around. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about some more transfers. But with the way these guys can move from team to team now and they get different opportunities with different teams, I mean, and some people hate it, some people love it. Me personally, I mean, it doesn't really bother me. But if you think about put yourself in their shoes, right? I mean, if you're Max Johnson, right, you've done nothing but play decent football everywhere you go. I mean, you start off at LSU as his first school, right?
I believe so.
All right, you go from LSU to A&M. All right, you got the number 1 dual threat quarterback in the country, Haynes King, coming in. They start him as a freshman. He breaks his leg, and you come in, have a decent season, and then turns out that Wigman's a guy the following year.
That's
right?
True.
Connor comes in there and absolutely deals. And it's like, all right, well, this is his team now. Wigman has a couple injuries. Max gets some more playing time. So, I mean, for a guy like that who's done nothing but produce and do what you ask him to do, for him to get the opportunity to have a starting job, I mean, if you're just a sports fan in general, you got to appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I agree. To me, the transfer portal, I love it. And I don't know how it really works. I don't really understand how.
No, nobody does. They don't know how it works.
I feel like they always say, like, oh, you get one transfer, and then after that, you have to try to go through the thing. But then you also see people that have transferred twice now, like, or multiple times since this thing's been open, which honestly, I don't care. You go play wherever you want to go play. To me, as a Georgia fan, the one that hurt the most is Jamon Dumas Johnson. He's the biggest player that I've seen transfer from Georgia that I was most upset about. Now, I know we had A.J. Harris. We had a couple corners this past year that were ranked really highly. But as a Georgia fan looking at like the players that you know and that you're watching every single Saturday, JDJ was the toughest one to watch go.
Dude, he was a crazy story.
And him going to Kentucky, which we have to see this year, and obviously a big rival of ours, sucks even more. But then I look at it as a competition thing. I cannot wait to see him try to tackle one of our University of Georgia running backs, like meeting in the hole. Like, I'm excited about that.
Well, when you think about C.J. Allen, right? Like, the whole JDJ situation was crazy. I mean, you're talking about a in my opinion, All-American caliber player in JDJ.
I agree.
And he leaves, right, with injury. And a lot of people don't know this, but in the postseason, he was healthy, fully
Yeah.
healthy, ready to get on that field. And they stuck with CJ. So, and I don't think that's a disrespect thing on JDJ, but when you got a guy playing as good as CJ Allen played last year, you can't just take him out of the game.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And especially when you got Smile Munden on the other side of the football, like, or on the other side of the line.
And to me, I honestly thought that going into last year, and even most of last year, I thought this Jamon Dumas Johnson was the best interior linebacker on the team, even over Smile Munden. But then you look at the difference between the skills. Smile Munden can hit sideline to sideline in 0.7 seconds.
He's an NFL linebacker.
He is an NFL. He can cover. He's aggressive. He's fast. He's big. He's physical. He's everything you can ask for. JGJ's smart. Jamon Dumas Johnson was a very, very smart linebacker. And he's probably going to also be an NFL linebacker. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no doubt.
But when it comes to physical traits, Smell Munden is just one of those guys that you have to keep on the field. And I think CJ Allen's the same way. It's just
CJ's an absolute
superhuman strength, like insane ability. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, especially with all these transfers and all their new homes. It's going to be crazy.
Well, I think that kind of brings us into a really, really good starting point since we're going to be playing the Aflac Bowl or Aflac kickoff game. I think that's where we consider the opening kickoff of college football, unless you want to visit any Thursday or Friday games. I know we got some NC State, Western Carolina, Kansas playing Lindenwood on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple that I'm looking at, but most of it's, gambling wise, if you want to just hit bets at the end.
Yeah, we'll do bets at the end. So that pretty much, I mean, I don't know if we want to stop for Oklahoma Temple. I know Oklahoma's kind of notable because Jackson Arnold, I believe, is their new starting quarterback. Is there a guy that they're going to be running out this year with Dylan Gabriel heading over to Oregon? Pretty big recruit that has not had much play yet in college football, but he's there now. So I think a lot of people are going to be keeping their eyes open with him. Also, another notable thing, Casey Thompson's also there. So I'm assuming he's going to be the backup plan just in case things go wrong with the young quarterback.
Yeah, the Oklahoma's kind of a weird one.
They're fringe. Very fringe.
Yeah, I mean, super fringe, but I think they just get washed out because of all the hype around Texas.
I do too, and also, I heard Saban say this. Sark has built Texas to play in the SEC. Up front, they're big on both offense and defense. That's the biggest problem with Oklahoma is they're just not. They're not at that point yet.
Yeah,
and I think they can be there. Who is Oklahoma's coach? Maybe I'm stupid for asking this question.
Venables, right?
Yep, Brent Venables. And I thought that was the dumbest place to go because it was a defensive coach going to the most offensive team you could ask for. I remember that. Yep. That shows how irrelevant they've been since Lincoln Riley left.
if you're gonna make the move to the SEC, maybe that's the way to go with defensive guy.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Brent Venables is one of the best defensive minds we've seen
ever.
Yeah, ever in college football. So I definitely can't. I cannot believe I forgot that.
And a great recruiter.
Yeah, fantastic. And now that they're in the SEC, that means the brand's going to be out there. Way bigger games are going to be on TV. They're going to be able to get, even stronger recruits. It's going to be good for everybody. But that leads us to the Aflac kickoff game, if you want to start dabbling into that. And me and Kenny are talking about doing a rebrand because we want to start hitting more of all-around football. Obviously, we're homers. We're always going to be homers. But I feel like whenever we can just go into... I don't want to be sitting here talking about the fourth running back on Georgia's depth chart every single week and what they're going to do. I
agree.
I want to start trying to dabble a little bit more into different games and have a little bit more variety so we can talk about more mainstream things, which I think would be a lot more fun for everybody. So I'm excited to talk about this game, and we can talk about in whatever aspect we're going to be. We're going to be homers regardless of anything about Georgia.
No doubt.
That's never going to go away. Are we going to spend 25 minutes talking about Roderick Robinson? Probably not. Well, maybe this time because I think he just had toe surgery and I think he's not playing in this game. So we might have to talk about it. But no, but we're gonna try to keep it a little bit shorter with all of our takes. We can hit a little bit more at a time. But I am very excited about this one because this is probably the biggest game of the week. So Kenny, if you want to start us off and give any opening thoughts on this game, I have a couple of them myself, and I'll just kind of follow up.
My biggest thought with this game, biggest concern, I guess you could say, is ETN.
Suspended.
Um,
I'm just gonna assume.
I don't like what's the extent? Like it. I don't think it's going to be an NCAA enforced suspension. It sounds like it's going to be a Kirby enforced suspension.
I
So
read something that said that based off Georgia's athletic department, it is if you are fined with a DUI, it's a minimum 1 game suspension. But he did have a
okay,
plea deal, so I don't know. That's where the confusion's starting to come in.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is he going to get a half? Is he going to get a game? I don't know. I mean, either way, you got Branson, right? And I mean, we can all talk about this as much as you want to, but I'm fine with trotting Cash Jones out there.
And
So
that's the biggest thing for me too. Is Roderick had toe surgery? He's out. He's not going to
yeah,
play. We're
he's
talking
not
about
playing.
ETN. ETN is most likely going to be suspended for at least a half. And then you talk about Branson, who has not played a college football game in over a year, almost 2 years at this point, because
Yeah.
he tore his ACL last summer before the season started. So outside of that, you're talking about Cash Jones and Nate Frazier, our 4-star running back that we signed this past year, are the 2 running backs after that.
Oh, Nate Frazier.
Now, I will say, there was one time, who was it? Nick Saban said that somebody was going to be suspended for the first half of a football game, and they started to go down early, and I swear to God, Nick brought his ass out there and started playing football. I'm pretty sure it might have been Najee. It was somebody.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing because this ain't a Mark Richt leg football team.
No, this Kirby.
People forget. So I mean, I'm curious to see how it goes. I will say with this team, or with this game, I should say, amid all the concerns, everything you want to look at from a strategic perspective, gambling wise, betting wise, numbers wise, whatever you want to call it. Clemson actually a really really good team against the spread last year. Their numbers were pretty impressive. They were better at home than they were away. With this being a neutral game, I don't know how you want to grade that. But last year against ranked opponents, 2-1 against the spread. They covered 66% of the time, obviously. With equal rest, they were 6-3 against the spread. At away games, or excuse me, in non-conference games, they were 3-2 against the spread. So, 13.5 is the number. It started at 14. I think it started at 14.5, moved down to 14. I sat there and looked at it at 14 for about a week and waited on it to move. I wanted it to drop to 13.5, and as soon as I got that half a point, I jumped on it. I'm on it heavy. I'm taking the dogs to cover 13.5 points. I feel good about it. Everybody says the word on the street is that this Clemson team reloaded, right? And obviously they got some new guys, but this is a really, really young football team. A really young football team with, in my opinion, a super, super high ceiling, low floor quarterback in Cade Klubnik.
Agreed.
I don't know what we're getting out of Cade. I love Cade. I think Cade's an awesome guy. I think he's a great, great football player, but he just hadn't been able to put it together. And we haven't been able to see anybody put it together since Trevor Lawrence got drafted. So maybe he's the guy, maybe he's not. I don't know. But I haven't seen anything from him to make me think that this year's Clemson team is going to be any different than last year. And last year was probably the most disappointing season for Clemson in a decade. So I don't know I don't know what you want to make of Clemson, Jake. I mean, I'll let you give your takes, but when I look at this Dogs team, obviously as a homer, obviously as a guy that follows the team heavily, I think personally, you lose Ladd, you lose Brock. That's huge, right? I mean, those are two, you could call them two number one targets, especially for Carson. Carson loved them. But you bring in guys, or not bring in guys, but bring up guys like Oscar Delp, who's got significant playing time, and we know what he's capable of and know what he can do. And the drop off from Brock Bowers to Oscar Delp, when you talk about who they are and what they mean, I mean, guys, Brock Bowers is the best college tight end I've ever seen. I've never seen anybody like Brock Bowers. Kyle Pitts, obviously, you can have that conversation if you want to, but watching week in and week out, people were scared to tackle Brock Bowers.
Yeah, Bowers is better than Pitts.
It's crazy.
Yeah, Pitts was different. Bowers is way different. That was insane.
But it's unfair to compare Oscar Delp to what Brock Bowers has been able to do. But let's compare Oscar Delp to every other tight end in the country for the past 5 years, right? The potential, the skill set, everything, he's up there with the best of them. So let's give him his opportunity. But and the tight end room being so deep as well, I think that plays a big factor in it. But you still got guys like Dom Lovett, right? You still got Dylan Bell. You still got plenty of weapons, and you still got pass catchers out of the backfield. We'll see what happens with ETN, but Cash Jones is there. He's a great receiving back. And you got Branson. He's going to total between the numbers. He's got speed. And then you got all the young guys that are coming up. So on top of all that, this Georgia offensive line is the best offensive line in the country. Defensive line is the best defensive line in the country. So I don't know what Clemson's got front seven wise or what they're going to be able to do on the ground, but I know this Georgia defensive line is going to be able to stop the football. I know this linebacker core is probably the best in the country as well, and a super, super young defensive backfield, but with a leader like Malachi Starks back there, the defensive backs they're going to be able to get it done. So we'll see what happens, but in my opinion, with a question mark Clemson offense with Cade Klubnik and all their weapons, I feel really good about Georgia covering that 13.5. Even with that being said, you know, a minute ago with Clemson's ATS record last year, the Dogs also pretty good against the spread as well. Especially coming off a win and as favorites. I mean, and you talk about how deep the SEC is, playing week in and week out against the teams that Georgia's playing, and how tough the schedule is this year. That's going to skew some of these results a little bit. But against a team like Clemson, I like Georgia. I like them to cover. And I'm really excited about the game. Obviously, it's the first game of the year. But, yeah, I like Georgia, and I like them to cover.
I can respect that. My one concern is that last year Clemson had a better defense than Georgia when you look at total numbers. Total defense, Clemson was 11th or 12th, and Georgia was either 12th or 13th. We were right behind Clemson. And obviously, that's two phenomenal defenses going head on head. And do I believe that Georgia's offense is better than Clemson's offense? 1,000%. There's no doubt about it. Do I think that Georgia's going to run into a little bit of an adjustment period early on in this season? That is my biggest fear that we run into. I don't think Georgia's going to lose this football game. Do I think this could be a sneaky 17-10 walk away with the win game? Definitely. And the only reason I say that is because we watched Carson Beck last year. Carson Beck is the most pro-style, best quarterback in college football, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
But, man, you talk about some safety valves you're losing. Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey, not only are they two number one targets, but they are two of the best safety valves you can find at a receiving position in college football last year. If you can't find nobody, check it down to Brock Bowers. He'll get you 40 yards. Ladd McConkey, just a little wide receiver screen. He's going to tote it, 35 yards. Nobody's open. You got guys. And there's another sleeper guy I want to throw out there that not many people are thinking about. Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint is no longer on this team. And if you watched Georgia last year in some pretty crucial third down situations, just trying to find a guy open, there was times where he was that guy. Now, I do agree with you. Guys like Dylan Bell, do I think Dylan Bell has so much potential to be a number one wide receiver in college football? 1,000%. Dylan Bell is a great player.
Hey, you put him in the backfield. You worried about running backs?
Yeah. And he also has spent time in the backfield running the ball. So, Dylan Bell's going to be great. We look at Arian Smith. If that man could catch 75% of the passes thrown to him, he would be a first-round pick. The only problem is he catches about 45% of the passes thrown to him because he cannot catch anything. But if we would just get Arian Smith to learn how to catch a football this offseason, we are going to be dangerous. Then you look at the third wide receiver, Dom Lovett. He is Mr. Consistency. You throw the ball to him anywhere close to him, he's going to bring it down. He's not flashy. He's not a big playmaker, but he catches almost everything to him. He almost reminds me of a Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint, almost in that same type role. The guy I'm kind of looking at, I have two guys that are kind of off radar that I think that might be big time impact players for Georgia in this game. Number one is London Humphreys, the transfer from
100%.
Vanderbilt. I think that this guy might step into a role in this game, and nobody's going to expect it, and he might turn into the next target for Carson Beck. The other guy is going to be, let me make sure I get my pronunciation right. It is going to be Ben Yurosek from Stanford. He was a big tight end transfer that we brought over. Now, is he going to be better than Oscar Delp? Probably not, but who is going to draw more attention? Oscar Delp is being hyped up as potentially the best tight end in college. Well, not best, because there's that Blake Lovelady guy from Michigan who's an absolute freak, but Oscar Delp is getting a lot of attention right now. If we do a two tight end set, this guy could find a lot of targets coming his way because Oscar Delp's going to get a lot of attention. And Ben Yurosek, I've seen his tape from Stanford. Dude can play some ball. So I'm excited about that. No, on the Clemson
Also,
side,
throw Colby Young in there too.
yeah, Colby Young. Colby Young from Miami, 6'5", big boy. I mean, he goes up there and catches the ball. I mean, there's a lot of guys we brought in. We look at Michael Jackson, not the one you're thinking of. Don't hide your kids. We're all good.
Yeah.
From USC. Now we got a lot of weapons that we brought in. I'm excited about it. The biggest thing to me though is just I think our defense is going to be good. You brought up a young secondary. Do I think that a young secondary really gets affected too much by this Clemson team? I don't think that they have the ability to really test it. And if they do start to test it, we have enough talent with guys like Ellis Robinson and guys like who's that safety we brought in? KJ Bolden. We have a couple of young, freshman DBs that could come in and be game changers for us. But I don't even think this is going to be a week that we'll even see those guys get much play. I think Dan Jackson will be just fine in this game. I think, obviously the corners are going to be just fine. I think this is just going to be a pretty simple game on the defensive side of the ball. The biggest concern with me is going to be Phil Maffa. I think that he is a better player than Will Shipley. I think that they set him up. I think pure runner, he is potentially one of the best pure running backs in the league. Now,
Damn rock.
We've watched Georgia in the past go against big time running backs, and they've walked away with 13 carries and 30 yards and had no impact on the game. And that could potentially be the same thing here. But if you let Phil Maffa get going, that dude can be a game changer. So the biggest thing for me is don't let him get going, because as soon as you let him get going, we know it's easy to talk trash on Cade Klubnik. He's been up and down, but there's one thing that everybody knows about him. He can throw a ball.
Oh yeah,
he can throw a ball. So if you start to focus too much in on the run game because Phil Maffa is tearing you up, don't let Cade Klubnik be the one that beats you, because he has been a little bit up and down throughout his college football career, but he can throw a good ball, and he has a lot of potential to be a great quarterback in college football.
No, I agree. I like Cade. I really do. I like him as a prospect. I liked him coming out of high school, and I still like him. I think he's got potential, and I haven't lost hope on him at all. I just think he's got to be put in the right situation, and it just doesn't seem like any of these Clemson quarterbacks since Trevor Lawrence can be put in the right situation. And honestly, dude, like maybe one day we'll have this conversation, and maybe it's too early now, but when you look at the talent that's come in and out of this Clemson team or Clemson program in the past few years, maybe it's not a very quarterback-friendly system.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, but you also look to the receivers that they were throwing to, that Lawrence and Deshaun Watson were throwing to. They were throwing to guys that were like superstars in college football. And now,
yeah, no doubt.
Who was the biggest Clemson receiver to come out in the past 3 years?
Couldn't tell you.
T. Higgins was the last big one I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, you can count Justin Ross if you want to.
Yeah, but even him, his last 2 or 3 years at Clemson, I don't think he really played much because he had heart failure or something.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's what it was, but it was something pretty serious.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but one thing about this Clemson offense is it's always demanded a ton of its quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
And they've just had the guys be able to get it done. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is one of the best college prospects since Andrew Luck, and then obviously Deshaun Watson was an amazing college player. He was great in the NFL, We'll see what happens with him later on in his NFL career, but, he was a stud for the first, 3-4 years?
Oh, yeah.
2-3 years, whatever it was. So, I mean, you're talking about straight up NFL franchise quarterbacks that have come through this program and been able to get it done, and you haven't had one since. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes with Cade. I got faith in him. I just, with how it looks up, how the teams match up and everything, I like the Dogs. I do like them to cover, and I've got a pretty hefty amount on that one.
No, I respect that. I don't think it's a bad bet at all. I would lean more towards staying away from it. I don't feel comfortable putting any money on this Clemson team, because could I see Georgia beating Clemson by 35 easily? But also, could I see this being a 24-21 game? It's so I don't know. That's the hard part about early college football. It's we're really just trying to see where every team stands.
I feel a whole lot better about 13 and a hook than I did 14.
Yeah, I agree. That's a big difference right there.
Oh yeah, I mean, give me half a point. I mean, that's a huge difference. You want to walk through this top 10 a little bit?
Yeah, we can go through top 10. You pull it up.
My next one's going to be quick. I mean, your number 2 team in the country is Ohio State. We hit on it. If you were in the live beforehand, maybe we'll get a couple clips from that and get on social media for y'all to see if you weren't. But
oh yeah,
I don't think either of us are very high on this Ohio State offense. Um, just kind of questions about what Will Howard's going to do. I mean, Will Howard, Jake mentioned it in the live, was a big awarded guy last year coming out of the Big 12. Maybe he's able to get it done. I don't know. I mean, obviously Kyle McCord wasn't. I don't know how much better Will Howard is than Kyle McCord. I definitely think he is better. But we'll kind of see. I mean, you look at the weapons they lost as well. It's pretty significant. Now you bring in a guy like Kenshawn Judkins, right? You're going to be able to run the football.
With
And
Travion.
you still got Travion. So that's going to be kind of a big test for that offensive line. I don't know what that offensive line looks like. I think they're relatively young. You got a transfer left tackle, you got a transfer center, and you got a sophomore guard. It looks like you got some experience in your left and right tackles, but again, one of them's a transfer. So a lot of guys are new to this program, and we'll see how it kind of pans out. But offensive wise, I don't really know what to say about this Ohio State team other than we'll see. I think they're going to be able to run the football. I don't know if they're going to be able to throw it. They still got Emeka Egbuka at wide receiver. He's an absolute stud, probably going to be a first-round pick. But other than him, I mean, you got Tate Carnell. He's a sophomore. Mylan Graham, Brandon Ennis. A lot of guys that we just haven't seen a lot of playing time from. And you talk about the likes of what this Ohio State receiver room's had for so many years. It's always been a guy. And I think Igbuka is that guy. I just, he's got to have somebody throwing him the football. And Kyle McCord was not him. So we'll see what Will Howard can do. I'm excited to see what this Ohio State offense can do. I'm especially excited to see what they can do in this revamped Big Ten because they got some games this year, son. And there's some games they ain't never had in the past. Everybody's always bitched and whined about this Big Ten schedule and how these guys have not playing anybody until you get to the game between Ohio State and Michigan every year. And then it's always the debate, are they deserving of a number one spot? Georgia had to run through these teams. Bama had to run through these teams. And Ohio State and Michigan didn't play anybody until they played each other. Well, that's going to change this year because they got some damn matchups. But one thing about this Ohio State team I'm going to tell you is different than the teams in the past. They got a damn defense.
Yeah, Ohio State's very good. I'm excited to watch them play. I do think that the quarterback issue is a question mark. Now we're looking at a guy that had 2,800 yards, 24 tuds, 10 interceptions. Seems pretty serviceable to me. And then you give him more talent because you mentioned Emeka and Buka, but let's not forget they had the number one overall recruit in the nation this past year, Jeremiah Smith, who was rated a 101 on 24/7 Sports. Never heard of that in my life. I've seen 100. Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence are both 100 rated prospects. Perfect. How the hell you get a 101? I ain't never seen shit like that in my life. I'm sorry, excuse my language. I'm getting a little offended.
All right, we're gonna see.
And his pro comparison on 24/7 is Julio Jones. So
that's a bold take.
6'3", 214. I'm excited to watch Ohio State play football. Do I think that they are probably the second most talented team in college football? I don't know. I don't even know who the most talented team is in. I mean, I know that's Georgia, but I feel like the transfer portal thing is starting to really, really hit us now. Where years ago we saw there was always a 1 and 2 team that was always number 1 and 2. I feel like the gap is slowly, it's expanding. Now there's 5 or 6 teams in the nation that you could see being like, oh, this team could win a national championship this year.
Yeah.
3 years ago, the number 5 team in the country was not competing with Georgia. Now we're starting to get to the point where it's like,
I'll be honest. I think the number 1 and number 2 team in the country, talent-wise, is very clear.
You think it's Georgia and Oregon?
100%.
Yeah. Okay. I can respect that. I think Georgia and Oregon are also probably the 2 most talented teams in the country.
I don't know. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel's. Do you want to talk about Oregon? They're ranked 3.
Yeah, we can talk about Oregon. Definitely.
All right. We'll talk about Oregon. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel, he's been in college for 900 years, and everybody's going to give him the Stetson Bennett treatment. But, man, I know it's not all about the numbers. It's about the X's and O's. But let's just look at this man, Dylan Gabriel's stats and what he's done in college football. This man has played for 2 different teams. He played at UCF for 3 seasons and Oklahoma for 2. All right, he's going into his 6th year at Oregon. He's thrown 26 interceptions in his entire collegiate career. He went 27-7 his first year, 32-4, 9-3 in his COVID year, 24-6 his first year at OU, and 30-6 last year at OU.
No, Dylan Gabriel can play. I feel like probably one of the most underrated quarterbacks in college football.
He takes care of the football. He can get it done on the ground. He's not an incredible runner athletic wise, but he's a big like a short yard. It's like a Jalen Hurts type deal where he can get out there, he can get open or get around an open space, but he can punch the ball in. 12 touchdowns on the ground last year and 30 in the air.
Man, 42 total touches.
And he's got the best wide receiver core in college football.
Yeah. Yeah, that is
dude, I don't know. I don't think they're getting enough talk, but this wide receiver room is nuts. All right, as an SEC fan, we have watched Evan Stewart for, 2 seasons?
Yes, sir.
He's an absolute freak of nature.
Oh, monster.
Evan Stewart is an absolute freak of nature and hasn't had a lick of consistent quarterback play. Let's look at his numbers, man, because Evan Stewart last year at Texas A&M, 38 receptions for 515 yards. Got no play at all from his quarterback. Couldn't get the ball to him because of the injuries and whatnot throughout the entire year. But you take a guy with his skill set, his route running ability, the way he can get open, and his hands, dude, his hands are insane. And you put him on a team where you've got to pick your poison if you're playing this team on defense, trying to figure out who you're going to cover. Because not only do they have Evan Stewart coming there, but they got Tez Johnson. And Tez Johnson last year, let me pull this up because I don't want to tell you wrong. I was looking at it before this podcast. Tez Johnson last year, 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns.
Whew. Man.
And then hold on. I should have done this before I started talking about Oregon. I got excited.
It can happen.
Trayshawn Holden, transfer from Alabama, played at Oregon last year. 37 receptions for 452 and 6 touchdowns.
And they also, I want to throw in there, Kenny, because I would just go ahead and add on. They also have a running back returning who was a backup last year that had 759 yards and 11 touchdowns with Jordan James. So, I mean, and that's a backup.
Returning 3 starters on the offensive line and 2 senior transfers at right guard and right tackle. I don't know what in the world they have on defense. I could not tell you. All you heard is about all the transfers the past couple of years between those linebackers that they recruited. They were like the top 2 linebackers in the entire country. But they've got Dan Lanning as a head coach.
Are they going to be better on defense year after year? We watched Kirby early on his time at Georgia. It took a couple of years for us to finally pick up that defense. I'm going to look at this. Peyton Woodyard from Alabama, safety, transferring over to Oregon this year. Big deal. We're talking about, 4-star. If you want to know anything, I'm not going to go through the whole list right here. Go on 24/7 Sports and look at the list of transfers that Oregon got this past year on both the offensive and defensive side of the football. Because me and Kenny were talking about it earlier. I was not wrong. After Dylan Gabriel, they also got Dante Moore, who was a 5-star recruit out of high school just 2 years ago from UCLA. Like they're thinking ahead in the future. Like they are building a program. If you have one of the top quarterback recruits transfer over to your school with a guy like Dylan Gabriel already there, they are trusting you to build a program around them.
Oh, 100%.
So I will agree with you, Kenny. I'm happy that you said Oregon. I was kind of trying to read you out a little bit, so I said Oregon because I think the same thing. I think Oregon is easily the number 2 team in the country right now. And if I was Georgia and I was looking at who I'm going to play, who I want to play, Oregon would probably be the last one on that list.
And we're not unique with this opinion. This opinion is pretty much by everybody. Everybody on the game day said Nick Saban predicted Georgia to play Oregon in the national championship. So we're not breaking any news out here by saying that this team's going to be very, very good. I'm just saying when you talk about what this Oregon team is going to be able to do, what they have personnel-wise, and then like I mentioned a little bit ago with the revamped Big Ten and all these new schedules that we're getting and all these new matchups that we're getting, it's going to be a very, very interesting year out there. And it's not going to be like recent years. We have always had the conversation about how football's different in the South. All right, it is, and that's a fact, 100%. And you ask anybody, ask any coach, ask any program, any AD, they're faster, they're stronger, they recruit better. It's just how it is. But one thing about the Big Ten is when these teams come out, they've always got stud skill position players and they struggle size wise, and they've not been tested well throughout the entire year. And the conversation every single time is, how are these players going to hold up against an SEC football team that's been tried and tested week after week after week? And that is not going to be the conversation this year, because every team in the Big Ten that comes out and makes this new 12-team playoff or wins the damn conference is going to have to go through hell to get there.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's gonna be a big problem. The 12 team is gonna add a whole lot of things that I think that it just gives every single team a little bit more room for, like, not as much room for error. A team like Georgia goes in, you could lose to the number 12 team in the country. It could happen. And obviously, if we're the number 1 team in the country, we're not gonna have to worry about the number 12 team in the country unless they win, the first round. But still, like, you get more opportunities to lose, your chances of losing go up. Like, I mean, I know that sounds pretty simple, but that's literally what happens. And I feel like teams like Oregon, who are clearly, very talented, just like Georgia, does that give them a little bit more of an advantage against Georgia? Like, if you were to put Oregon and Georgia on the same football field, one game, you're playing each other, winner take all. I'm taking Georgia, but all the variables that go into this, this makes me really excited. I love the 12-team playoff. I'm excited to see how this actually takes place this year.
I just like the fact that these teams are going to get screened out too. I mean, I'm not just going to sit here and talk about the schedule, back to back to back to back, but it is nice to know that with a 12-team playoff, you're not going to get cupcake teams in there. I mean, there's going to be a couple, right? You're going to get some group of 5 teams that make the playoff, right?
Yeah.
But these teams, like the first guy out, second guy out in the Big Ten, first guy out, second guy out in the SEC, and any other way you want to look at it, these teams are going to be tested. They're going to be battle-tested football teams. So when it comes time to playoff time, you got guys that are, not only are they playing in a lower-seeded spot in the 12-team playoff, but they got a week of rest by not playing in a conference championship game.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a conversation that, I mean, we've never had before because we've never had a 12-team playoff. But, I mean, that's the most exciting thing to me is, sure, you've got more teams, but I think the matchups are going to be better across the board because these teams are going to be, more screened by the time they get there. Because every year there's always, like with the 4-team playoff, 1 or 2 teams where it's like, I mean, last year, you talk about with Georgia, the SEC championship, 1 loss against a really good Alabama team, and they missed the playoff. And Pat McAfee said it best, we weren't able to complain about it because Florida State didn't make it, and they didn't lose a damn football game.
Mm-hmm.
So we couldn't whine and complain about it because they couldn't whine and complain about it. But, let's look at how that playoff shook up. That Georgia team probably deserved a spot. And you're not going to have that same concern this year because these teams are still going to get an opportunity to go in there and compete for a national championship.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, we look at it right now. I mean, Missouri went into this season right now. They're currently ranked 11th in the country.
Yeah.
Like, Missouri was a damn good football team. Do I think that they should have had a chance to the national championship last year? Hell yeah. Missouri had what? How many losses they have last year? 1, 2? And I know they lost to us. I don't know how many other games they lost. I don't know what the record was last year off the top of my head.
I can't remember.
But, I mean, hell, Missouri was great last year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're pretty much, lighting the world on fire because everybody's like, wait, hold up, Missouri's good? This is 2013 or something?
Yeah.
What's going on? We ain't seen this in a while. Nobody expected it. So, yeah, I'm excited about it. I think that's, there might be a couple of teams sneak in there. It's going to be cupcake games. But, like, if you look at the top 12 right now, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan, Florida State, Missouri, Utah. Not a single cupcake in that list.
No.
Now, last year, Utah was a little bit up and down, but you put Cam Rising on that team, that's a different football team.
Oh, I agree 100%.
Like, if we were to go into a playoff right now with those 12 teams, every single team has at least a 10 to 15% chance, I think, to win any game. Like, I don't think there's a team that's like, oh, it's just a 99% chance that they're going to lose this game against Georgia. Like, probably more. I think every team, like, you put Utah against Georgia, I think Utah has at least a 20% chance to win that game. And that's where I get excited about because even the teams out right now, LSU, Clemson, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Miami, Texas A&M, like all good teams. Kansas State, I mean, they just lost their quarterback, so I don't know. I don't know what they're doing up there. Maybe they got a new transfer in there that I'm not really paying attention to, but
Yeah.
we'll see. Let's see who their quarterback is. I ain't got no idea. I ain't got no clue. Probably Taquan Robertson, but they're still in there, so. But no, I'm excited about it, man. I think that we're really, really getting to a, I think that all the rule changes that we've made in college football recently have been, as a fan, for me, it's perfect. I have no complaints to any of it.
I'm never going to complain about more football.
Me neither. I mean, you give me, how many is it? 16 now? They've been playing 16 games total.
Yeah.
I love that. Hell,
Yeah,
they
me
can
too.
play 17. I don't care.
I don't care how long you play. I'll watch it. I promise.
I mean, to me, you put, the number 5 team playing the number 8 team in a meaningless bowl game. Like, it's stupid. I would much rather you actually give us a couple different bowl games that go on for 3 weeks and get us an actual playoff instead of just a 14 playoff. Because a 14 playoff is not a playoff. It's literally like, that's stupid.
No, it's not a playoff at all. All right, you want to move to the number 4 team?
All right, number 4. Kenny, carry us for a second. I'll let you get your thing in. I'm gonna come back and recap. I actually have to use restroom break, and we're not fancy enough where I have any like commercial breaks or anything. So give me a second.
Yeah, this restroom break is
Brought to you by Manscaped.
brought to you by our sponsor. All right, so the number 4 team in the country this year, and in my opinion, without a doubt, the 3rd best talent-wise team in the country is the Texas Longhorns. Texas is bringing back a hell of a squad. You talk about bringing back a guy in Quinn Ewers who, you're either on the Carson Beck train or the Quinn Ewers trade of who's the best quarterback in college football. I don't think you can go wrong in either way. Obviously, I'm a homer. I love Carson Beck, but Quinn Ewers is an amazing football player, an amazing quarterback. But one thing I'm going to say about Texas that I didn't say about these other teams is they're bringing back a lot of returning starters, specifically on the defensive side of the football. If you look at this Texas defense, they lost 2 huge position players on the defensive line, but defensive line set aside, on this defense, they're bringing back 2 starters at linebacker, and they brought in transfer Trey Moore from UTSA, who's had 20 sacks within the past 2 years. So 2 10-sack seasons back-to-back. You bring him into an already strong Texas linebacker core. He's going to be a on-the-ball linebacker, guy coming off the edge. It's going to help a lot in replacing the 2 defensive tackles that they lost in Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat. But other than that, you're bringing back 2 starters at linebacker. Defensive backfield, definitely an above average defensive backfield. And you heard the whole conversation with Nick Saban talking about how Sark is trying to build up this culture at Texas and how he's done a good job for the past few years of putting together an SEC caliber roster. And I mean, he's absolutely right. This Texas defense is bringing back a lot of guys. They did a really, really good job in the transfer portal. And at the defensive backfield, they're ranked in 2022 like bottom 10 in defensive efficiency in the backfield. In the defensive backfield, they allowed 242 yards a game on defense through the air. And in 2023, they played super aggressive. They brought guys up. They played a lot of press man. This was kind of that turning point in what Saban was talking about, was Sark bringing in new recruits and playing more physical football. And the numbers looked a whole lot better. But you're talking about this year, you're bringing back a senior corner and John Day Barron has been starting for 2 full years now at Texas, and a sophomore quarterback, that Malik Muhammad kid, who became one of the best football players in the Big 12 last year. And I'm excited to see what he can do in the SEC. It's going to be, a big change of pace for these guys. And another UTSA starter or transfer that's going to be starting for them at Javion Bell. But this Texas defense is probably the best Texas defense that we've seen in years. And obviously, I know you lose Tavondre Sweat, you lose Brian Murphy, excuse me. But you replace him with that transfer. I don't know if you've seen this, Jake. I was just talking about it, but everybody's been talking about this Texas offense. But this Texas defense looks really, really good. They're bringing back like over 50% of their starters, and they got 2 transfers coming in from UTSA One that played corner last year, won some awards at corner, and another one that had 20 sacks over the past 2 years.
Ooh.
It's coming in. He plays off the ball linebacker, and their two inside linebackers from last year are returning this year. So they're kind of doing a pretty good job, like what Saban was talking about, of replenishing the roster and building kind of an SEC caliber team. But the defense looks very, very good. And the offense, obviously, everyone wants to talk about the offense. I hit a little bit about the whole Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck debate. You're either number one on one guy, number two on the other, or vice versa. I don't think you can go wrong. They're both studs. My biggest concern with Texas's offense is the wide receiver room looks really, really, really good name wise, but they're super small. Super small. I mean, Isaiah Bond, he's a great football player coming from Alabama. 700 yards, 4 touchdowns last year. He's going to be probably the main contributor on this team at 5'10", 180 pounds. Silas Bolden, a transfer coming in from Oregon State, had the most impressive year of the entire receiving group last year with almost 800 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's 5'8", 160. Matthew Golden, transfer from Houston, 6 touchdown year, 400 yards, 6 foot tall, 195 pounds. That's your biggest guy in the receiving room. So that's the only concern for me is how are these smaller statured receivers going to line up against these physical SEC defenses? But you're bringing back some starters on the offensive line. You're going to be able to run the football. You bring C.J. Baxter back, so
And that's what I was just about to get you on too. My biggest concern is that C.J. Baxter, actually, they announced recently that he's going to be out for the year with the ankle injury.
Is he really?
Yeah, C.J. Baxter is going to be out for the year. So
last I heard, he was day to day.
I know that's the that's the problem with college football news. Yeah, if you click on his name on ESPN, it says Texas loses running back Baxter for a year with knee injury.
Yeah, I see it now.
College football is so weird with their injury stuff. I wish they would just openly announce everything. I saw a report on it recently, and that was my biggest thing with Texas that I wanted to bring up is I like Texas. I think that defensively, I think Texas is going to be just fine playing the SEC. Offensively, I think Isaiah Bond has the potential to be the best Texas wide receiver that we've seen in recent memory, and that includes with Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell. I think Xavier Worthy was just a speedster. Now, obviously, do I think he's going to be good in the league? Yeah, because he's fast as fuck. Or fast as hell, sorry. Got the language coming out. Do I think A.D. Mitchell was a little bit disappointing last year at Texas? Yeah, I think he did not really play as well as I thought he was going to, but I think that's also mostly because he was pretty much number 2 receiver there. Right. I think that Xavier Worthy's going to come in. Not Xavier Worthy. I'm so sorry. I think Isaiah Bond's going to come in and he's going to play really, really good ball at Texas this year. But like I said, the running back situation, it looks like Jaden Blue is going to be their starter going into the year. And obviously he's a sophomore. He's a junior, so he's been there for a while. He was their 3rd string guy last year. So he's had some run. But you look at Texas success in the past couple of years. You Jonathan Brooks last year. The year before that, it was Bijan. Like, this team is a team that has built very, very good running backs. So I don't know if that's going to be so much of an issue. Of maybe it's just a system for running backs. Maybe Jaden Blue comes in here and turns into a superstar just like every other Texas running back we've seen in the past.
True.
Or maybe the guys they had before him were just super, like, uber talented guys that, carried this team. And that's where I'm kind of in the middle. Like, if Jaden Blue cannot come in here and actually give this team what they need on the ground, that's where things can start to get really, really scary. But if he does, I think this Texas team is not really going to take much of a step back from last year. They might be better. So that's where kind of where I'm at with Texas right now.
No, I agree. I think the defense is the most, other than quarterback, I think the defense is the most impressive part of this football team. And, honestly, I'd rather have on paper a better defense going into the year than an offense if you're playing in the SEC, especially with a quarterback like Quinn Ewers.
Yeah.
We've seen so many times in college football, man, a good quarterback can get you out of so many different situations, bad situations, and Quinn Ewers is definitely one of those guys. He's a game changer. So if they can give him some time to throw the football, they can figure something out on the run. They've got the guys in the receiving corps to make plays. The only concern for me is the size.
Yeah. When it comes to a big-time situation, you just got to trust you like a 50-50 ball. Who are you going to throw that 50-50 ball to? You don't have much options out there. With third and 15, and you're. I know in today's football, most of the time 3rd and 15 is a halfback draw or a screen or something like that. But 3rd and 15 late in the game, you can't do a screen. Like, you gotta try to get throw the ball to the markers, and throwing it to a guy that's 5'7" compared to a guy that's 6'3", it's a big difference right there. So I definitely see your concern there.
Um, yeah, marching on down the list, we got Alabama at 5. Um, Jake, I really don't have much to say about this Alabama team. I don't think they're very good.
I think Alabama is going to finish. I don't want. I just now that Saban's gone, I feel comfortable saying this. I think they're going to finish either fourth or fifth in the SEC this year.
Vegas thinks they're going to finish 9-3.
I think when I'm looking at the SEC, I think that Georgia is clearly a better team. No doubt in my mind, 1,000% a better football team. I think Ole Miss, if Alabama didn't have the pedigree they've had in the past, and like Nick Saban had been there and they hadn't won so many games, I think Ole Miss is a better football team on paper, no doubt.
Agree.
I think Texas is a better football team on paper. Missouri, Missouri on paper doesn't really ever really impress me that much. Luther Burden is a stud. You know, the quarterback they have down there is a absolute beast. But do I think it's close? Yes. Tennessee, don't sleep on Tennessee this year. Tennessee has reloaded that defense. Tennessee is going to be able to play defense this year. And if Nico, who's one of the biggest wild cards in college football right now, if Nico comes out and plays football the way he can, Tennessee could possibly be up there. And again, I hate to say this. LSU's always good. I'm not going to sleep on them. If Florida did not have such a hard schedule this year, I would have my eyes on Florida. And I feel a little bit different saying that now because the SEC is open. Like, honestly, I don't care if Florida comes in second place. Like,
Yeah.
like it's why we don't have an East and a West no more. So, like, it doesn't really
It's
matter.
different.
Yeah.
Well, as long as we beat them.
Yeah, as long as we beat them, I don't really care what they do. It's not like they're competing with us on the Eastern side. So,
The thing about this Alabama team that's so perplexing to me is that I don't even know how to give you a breakdown on this team because when I look at their roster, I just don't know anyone.
I mean, yeah, you lose. I mean, you lose Downs on the defensive side of the ball. You lose. Who is
Who's
the
your
other
best
safety?
player?
Who was the other safety? I mean, they lost Dallas Turner in the draft, right? Was that this year? Dallas
Mhm.
Turner.
Yeah, they lost Dallas Turner.
You lose Kool-Aid McKinstry in the draft.
Yep.
The safety I just now mentioned earlier that was transferred over to Oregon. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but he left too. He was the guy on the other side of Downs.
Your starting running back's Justice Haynes. He had 20 carries last year.
Yeah, starting running backs in Atlanta Falcon right now. So
Yeah.
Chase McClellan, Isaiah Bond leaves. Jalen Milroe is a good college quarterback. I like to watch Jalen Milroe play.
Oh yeah, I love Jalen Milroe. Let me ask you a question. I want to get your take on this. The Alabama Crimson Tide, the historic franchise of the Alabama Crimson Tide, going into this year, give me your guess at what their top receiver is in reception or receiving yards last year on this current depth chart. How many yards did he have?
28.
28 yards? I'm talking about
yards. I thought you meant receptions. My bad. Yards.
No, I'm talking about yards. This is including transfers, including everybody. According to the Alabama depth chart, guys that are currently listed as wide receiver on this roster, who, or not who, but how many receiving yards did the number one receiver on this Alabama depth chart have last year?
376.
371. That's a hell of a guess.
Hey, I figured it'd be somewhere in there.
And that is Mr. Jeremy Bernard from the University of Washington.
Oh yeah, let's go, Jeremy.
Other than him, at your wide receiving core, you're looking at Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, and a bunch of young guys. You got 3 freshmen on this team: Ryan Williams, Caleb Odom, and Amari Jefferson. I don't know anything about any of them. You got a running back that had 20 carries last year, and you got a great quarterback in Jalen Milroe. But man, I just don't know what he's going to be able to do with this offense. And I don't know anything about the offensive line. I know they've got a transfer center, and they got a really, really young offensive line. They got a starting freshman. They got a starting sophomore. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you hit on it just a minute ago. I mean, maybe, obviously we're homers, love Malachi Starks. Caleb Downs might be the best player in the country.
Oh yeah, best safety in the country. I love you, Malachi. Caleb Downs is the best. He's the best safety. There doesn't get better than that.
And he's gone. So I don't know what the deal with this Alabama team is going to be this year, but what I can tell you is that Vegas has their over-under at 9.5, and it is juiced like hell to 9.5. They want you to take 9.5. Vegas thinks this team's going to go 9-3, and I wouldn't touch it, Jake.
I wouldn't either. I mean, I'm looking at their schedule right now. You go on the road. You play Georgia. You play Georgia at home. Okay, got you. On the road, you're playing Tennessee, LSU, and Oklahoma within 5 weeks of each other. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, you go to Tennessee and LSU, you play Tennessee, Missouri at home, and then LSU on the road. That is three tough games.
It's
Three
terrible.
tough games in a row. And that's gonna be an experience right there. Now, they do have a bye week before LSU, but you're gonna go to LSU. I'm assuming that's gonna be a night game. You would like to think Alabama going to LSU is probably gonna be, I would love to see it be a night game. Man, they're not gonna do Bama like that though.
Mm-mm.
They're gonna give Bama a little cupcake 12 o'clock game at LSU.
Gotta be.
Yeah, they're not gonna give them the night game.
No.
Alabama gets too much respect. Now I will say, Kellen Dubois or whatever his name is, Dubois, Washington's former head coach. Not a big fan, and it's not so much. Do I think Washington was a great program last year? And do I think if he was to stay at the University of Washington, could he continue to build that program and keep on improving year after year? Now, when I say improving, obviously they made the college football playoff last year. They were great. I don't. I hate to see coaches make this big of a jump because it is a big jump. Like I think it's a bigger jump than a lot of people expect. There's guys like Steve Sarkisian that jump over to Texas. That's different. You've been with Saban. You know what it's like to coach in the big leagues. This guy has no clue. Like he has
Nothing.
no clue at all. We're talking about Michael Penix and Roma Dunze basically carried that offense. And who the hell knew who either of those guys were when it comes to the recruiting profile of it?
No one.
They were not big recruits. They were not. They just came and they were overly talented players that you got blessed in having. You probably can't recruit on the level that you need to recruit to be over here in big boy ball. That's something we've seen new head coaches really, really have problems with whenever you don't have the pedigree of being a guy like Kirby Smart or Steve Sarkisian or Lane Kiffin. And we saw that happen with Alabama. How many of their players left? And you're sitting there replacing Alabama players with Washington players, and you think this is gonna work out well for you?
It didn't. It didn't work out at Washington, bud.
No, 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 it did not. I mean, ugh. I'm not gonna go too far in because I feel like this is one of the hardest things to talk about with Bama. And they could go 11-1. They can go 12-0. Who knows? Like honestly, that's the beautiful thing about college football. They could go 12-0. Just on the outside looking and seeing how much talent they lost and seeing how youthful this football team is. That Tennessee team has some veterans on it. Nico's young. That Tennessee team can play. Florida, that team is bringing back a lot of talent. Now, they lost Ricky, they lost Slick Rick, and they lost ETN, but that team is bringing back a lot of talent. And let me tell you, if that DJ Lagway kid gets to play some this year, whew, the country better be ready because that kid is going to be different. That dude looks like he's 230 pounds. Oh, my God.
He looks like a tank.
He looks insane.
It's ridiculous.
LSU's
Like,
pack. We're talking about Garrett Nussmeier, who's probably going to go out there and throw for, he might be the next good quarterback in the SEC in my mind. I mean, next pro style guy that can go out there and throw for 350 a game. The SEC is not getting any easier. These are teams that are establishing themselves more and more. Jackson Dart has turned himself into a top five, undoubtedly top five quarterback in the college football, no doubt. Like these teams are building, and Alabama took a huge step back compared to what everybody else in the SEC has done. Other than Mississippi State and Arkansas, those two teams are they're not taking many steps forward. Sam Pittman, we love you, but you're probably gone.
All right, so if we look at this, I'll get your opinion on it. I don't want to speak out of turn here, but if you look at the top 10 teams in the country, the number 10 team is Florida State. We kind of already hit on Florida State.
Yeah.
At 9, 8, and 7, you've got Michigan, Penn State, and Notre Dame. I don't have much insight to give on any of those teams.
I don't either. I think Penn State's the best of the group, and the only reason I say that is because I see Drew Aller throw a football, and it makes me really, really excited sometimes until he plays a good team and he looks like Jake Fromm.
I feel like he's got so much potential.
He does. Drew Aller has a lot of potential.
I really can't give you any good insight on Michigan, Penn State, or Notre Dame, but what I am excited to talk about is the next team on this list, and that's the number 6 team in the country, and that's the Ole Miss Rebels.
Ole Miss, man. This is if I'm a Georgia fan, and now that every single team is on the same side of the bracket, I can't have a team I can root for inside the SEC still, but man, if I could, Lane Kiffin and these Ole Miss Rebels would definitely be that team. This team is awesome. I just
Team
feel
was
like when you look at just the most fun you could have, people talk about the running back position. I don't know who the hell is going to be their new running back. Quinshon Judkins last year was an absolute stud. When I look at this team, I'm focused all the way on that quarterback position and the improvements that they have made on the defensive side of the ball through the transfer portal.
and
Jackson
returning
Dart
starters.
and returning starters. Yeah, this team has a lot of guys coming back.
You're
But
bringing, like, literally, like, I'm looking at a list right now of every returning starter on this team. They're bringing back Kari Coleman at linebacker, who led the team in tackles last year, or in the linebacking group, and then Trey Washington, a safety that led the entire team with 83 tackles last year.
damn.
And other than that, I mean, you're bringing back defensive line starters. You're bringing back Jared Ivey, who led the team in sacks. You're bringing back, and then all the offensive starters, which we haven't even got there yet. And then this defensive end who transfers in from Florida, and you probably know this guy, that I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but it's Princely. It's like Uman Malin or something.
Mm-hmm.
This Joker is an absolute beast, dude. Played at Florida last year, had 39 tackles and 11 and a half tackles for loss and 7 sacks solo.
Yeah,
And he's joining a stud Ole Miss defensive line with the guy I already mentioned, and Jared Ivey, and then like the number 2 ranked defensive lineman in the entire SEC in Walter Nolan.
yeah. Former number one recruit in the nation like 2 years ago that
Yeah.
Texas A&M that Jimbo failed. So
So this defense looks very, very good. But let's talk about the offense. Go ahead, Jake.
on the offensive side of the ball, like I said, I honestly this is just a fresh thing for me. I am trying so hard to try to figure out who their starting running back is going to be. Quinshon Judkins leading is the number one thing that everybody's going to talk about when you look at Ole Miss Rebels. I look at the continuous improvement we've seen from a guy like Jackson Dart. I mean, we're talking about a guy that was a former, top recruit. I think it was USC, right? He was a part of those USC guys that just transferred out because they couldn't start because Caleb came over.
Yeah, didn't he back up Slovis?
Yep, he was the backup to Keaton Slovis. That's right. So then he heads over to Ole Miss, and I think his first year he was average, nothing special. Last year we go into the season, 3,400 yards, 23 tuds, 5 interceptions, the 16th highest QBR in the league in all of college football last year. Very last game of the season, in his Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl against Penn State, 379 yards and 3 touchdown passes, no interceptions. Jackson Dart is an absolute stud. And when I talk about that stuff, let's not forget this kid is also very frisky on the ground. 377 yards last year on the ground with 11 or 7 touchdowns. This kid can also get kind of groovy on the ground. So I'm really, really excited to see the extra step he takes this year, especially knowing that he is draft eligible going into the season. This is going to be his senior year, so this is his last chance. When I watch him play, I see a little bit of Bo Nix there. And I don't mean to make the comparison, but there's a little bit of Bo in there. He's frisky, he's gritty, but he can make the throws he needs to make. So I'm really, really excited to see him play.
I am too. And I think you were talking about running backs. This is an interesting one for me because if you look at the depth chart, the posted depth chart, they've got that Ulysses Bentley guy listed as starting, which he was there last year, had a good year, averaged 5.7 yards per carry and 4 tuds on the ground on 92 carries. But they bring in Miami's leading rusher from last season, Henry Parrish.
That's what I was just looking at was Henry Parrish. Yep.
He looks like a guy, man. 6.5 yards per carry and 6 tuds on 89 carries. I think I don't know who's going to take the number 1 spot. Like I said, the Bentley's listed as number 1 on the depth chart, but a 1-2 tandem between these two guys, you got to feel pretty good about that, especially with the receiving weapons that I'm sure we're about to talk about.
Oh yeah, definitely. Henry Parrish, he's a guy last year, at Miami that put a lot of good work in. Everybody wants to get out of that program. they don't give you much good going on. So I'm excited to see what they can do. And to be fair, most time in college football, we know this. There's not really a number 1 back.
No.
Like it's mostly always
fresh legs.
Yeah, fresh legs. Whoever gets on there gets on there. It's a big thing. I'm sorry. I'm trying to Google something right now too. I'm just over here Googling.
Let me give my take of the year for this Ole Miss team.
What you got?
His name has slipped under the radar because he was out for the entire year last year. But this is Mr. Juice Wells, starting wide receiver 1 for this Ole Miss football team this year. I don't know if you're familiar with what this man has done in his first 2 seasons. This will be his 4th year in college football. Like I said, he missed the entire season last year. He's a senior. He's 6 foot tall, 205 pounds. Jake, he came from South Carolina, and the year before that, his freshman year, he played at James Madison. In his first 2 seasons of college football, he had 2,100 yards and 20 touchdowns.
Woo. Woo. Okay.
You're looking at a first-round talent in Mr. Antoine Juice Wells, they call him. And I love this addition for Ole Miss. I think he's going to be huge, a huge contributor for this team. And especially you talk about the other receiver weapons. You bring back Trey Harris, who had 1,000 yards and 8 tuds last year. And you got Jordan Watkins coming back with 750 yards and 3 tuds last year. Pretty decent size in this receiver room as well. I mean, Trey Harris is a 6'3 guy, go-get-it type dude. Jordan Watkins more of a speedster, 5'11". But Juice Wells, remember the name, Antoine Wells, Juice Wells they call him. 2,100 yards and 21 touchdowns in his first 2 years of college football. I had 3 receptions last year before he missed the entire season with a tud. So I am excited to see this man healthy again and playing college football in Mississippi with Jackson Dart throwing him the football. I mean, we're in for a treat.
Yeah, I just looked that up. First year with James Madison was what was that?
Crazy.
14 tuds, and then the second year going to South Carolina, 900 something yards, like 8 more tuds. Adding that weapon, like we're not even worried about the run game right now. We're looking at an Ole Miss team that has Lane Kiffin, one of the best play callers. Nick Saban, I think, said probably the best offensive play caller we've ever seen. Give Jackson Dart those weapons. We're about to see prime Matt Corral if he had actual great weapons on his team.
We're about to see Kyle Trask.
We're about to see Kyle Trask. It's time to see Zach Mettenberger come out here and play ball. Excited.
No, I love this Ole Miss team, dude. I'm excited to watch them play. And like you said, in an SEC that's going to be more competitive in terms of teams that are in the hunt this year than we've seen in I don't know how many years. This is going to be super, super fun to watch because I'm pretty high on the A&M team. If they can stay healthy and Wigman can stay healthy and he can go out there and play with the talent that he has, and this LSU team, Garrett Nussmeier is a guy.
Oh, Nussmeier can play. Nussy can play.
We know he's a guy. So with the depth that the SEC has, with all these teams coming in, and like I said, I don't know how Oklahoma's going to stack up. I'm not too high on them. But you bring in a team like Texas that just already just asserts themselves as the top 3 team in the conference, probably top 2, really. I mean, this is going to be the deepest the SEC's maybe, I mean, in our lifetime probably ever been. But in terms of just powerhouse conference, I mean, we might see 4 or 5 SEC teams in this 12-team playoff.
And a lot of it to me is, I mean, you look at college football nowadays, the quarterback play is catching up hard. I mean, a while ago, we looked at the running back. You know, running backs were pretty much college football. You had great running backs. You could succeed like Bama did. They had, you know, they had game-managing quarterbacks, but fantastic Heisman-winning running backs, and they made, with great defenses, and they won national championships. Nowadays, it's quarterback. You look at the SEC right now. When you talk about quarterbacks that are guys, just like off the top of your head, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers. You go from there. Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Brady Cook, Nico, maybe. Nico's still a little bit up in the air. Connor Whiteman. Who am I missing? Garrett Nussmeier. We're at 8 right now. Jackson Arnold, remember, big-time recruit, could be a guy.
Vandergriff.
Brad Vandergriff over at Kentucky, big-time recruit, 5-star guy, could be a guy. And I don't want to say this name because honestly, I'm starting to forget it right now. Who is our gentleman down there with the Florida Gators that actually put together a pretty good season last year? I should know this. I've had too many Busch Lights.
Oh, lattes.
Too many of them. Damn, what is his name? How am I forgetting his name?
I know you're talking about, and I can't think of his name either.
Yeah, well, we know the guy from Florida. And guess what? If he doesn't work, we got
Graham Mertz.
Graham Mertz actually was kind of impressive last year. He played pretty good ball.
And they bring in DJ Lagway.
And DJ Lagway, who ended up being the #1 quarterback recruit in the nation last year after it was all said and done. He actually
6'3",
passed
240.
he actually passed Dylan Raiola in the 24/7 rankings, which is kind of crazy.
It is crazy.
And hell, man, that's 9 guys. And I'm sure if I was to go through the other teams, I mean, who else?
You're gonna find some more.
Nate Johnson. I don't want to say Nate Johnson's a guy, but I mean, he has potential. Young guy, a lot of speed from Vanderbilt can play. Then we start to run into Mississippi State, and I have no idea who their quarterback is this year. Or Arkansas, who's running out Lenora Sellers, who a lot of people, I mean, not Arkansas, South Carolina, a lot of people think Lenora Sellers could be a guy. There's people that was saying he should be starting over Spencer Rattler last year. So I think Lenora Sellers, I mean, there's a chance he could end up being a good quarterback.
Yeah.
Arkansas, I have no fucking clue. Mississippi State, I ain't got no clue. I'm sorry about it, guys. Y'all. To me, those are the 2 saddest teams in college football. I look at Vanderbilt. Obviously, they're probably going to be bad, but
doo-doo.
Arkansas and Mississippi State they're terrible, and they have more resources than Vanderbilt ever will.
Well,
I think over
for our top 10, really.
Yeah, the only other things I'd like to mention, the 7, 8, 9 areas. 7, the only thing Notre Dame's really notable for is Riley Leonard is now their quarterback from Duke. 8, everybody's gonna be keeping their eye out for Drew Aller. He's was supposed to be one of the big guys coming up this next year or this past year, and he really didn't show out as much as a lot of people would have liked. And then 9, we have a guy, Alex Orji, who's going to be taking over for JJ McCarthy, and he's more of a dual threat guy that I think some people are excited about too because he has a lot of talent.
Top 10 name too, college football.
Yeah, can't wait to see a lot of orgies in the end zone when he runs it in there.
Ooh,
pumped up for it. Let's go.
You want to make some money?
Yeah, make some money and finish this off.
All right. I'm going to hit on a couple bets that I really, really like this week for you betting individuals out there. I'm looking on my bookie. It's what I like to use. It's what I prefer. They give you pretty good deals. And they got a little loyalty rewards program now, so that's pretty sweet if you're a frequent flyer like myself. We mentioned it a little bit with college football week 1 kicking off tomorrow night, Thursday, August 29th. We got a couple pretty good games out here that I'm looking at. I won't hit on every single one of them because there's just so freaking much. But you talk about betting wise. August 29th, Thursday night at 8 o'clock, we got Colorado Buffaloes, right? The hype team, hype boys of the world, trotting out there against one of the best FCS programs this year and probably the best FCS program ever, North Dakota State. Colorado comes in at a 9.5-point favorite at home. Thinking about sprinkling a little bit of North Dakota State money line here, but I do have a bet on them to cover the 9.5 and Colorado. Love that bet.
I'm also going to dabble in this. If that gets covered, that over 60.5 is hitting, no doubt. That game is they're going to score. I mean, Colorado doesn't play defense. North Dakota State, if they're going to compete with Colorado, they're going to have to score points. It's going to easily go over that 60.5 to me.
This another 8 o'clock kickoff I'm looking at, Coastal Carolina, Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State stepping up to play with the big boys last year. This is going to be really their first year coming in here and having a little bit of momentum under them. They started off as a dog. That was a 2.5-point dog. That line moved 5.5 points. They're a 3-point favorite now. I got in there on the money line at about even money. You're sitting at about -152 now. 3 points, 3 points. In my opinion, I'm not taking 3 points pretty much ever. -152, that's a little bit rich for my blood, but I definitely like Jacksonville State to win that football game.
I agree with that, yeah. Coastal Carolina, what a fall off. I mean, you'd asked me that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have been right with you, but it seems like since Grayson McCall's been out the question, they've been taking a big step back.
All right, now moving into Friday night. Friday night got a couple good games as well. Duke is playing Elon at home. They're a 23.5-point favorite. I really, really like Duke to cover the 23.5 points. I do not have a bet on this. We'll see. I may end up taking it. Actually, screw it. I'm taking it right now as we speak. Yep, locking it in. I got Duke to cover the 23.5 at home against Elon. What else do we have? TCU and Stanford. I don't know if you watched any Pac-12 football last year, but Stanford might be the worst football team in the FBS.
Terrible, awful.
It's horrible. TCU going to Stanford to play them as a 9-point favorite. Give me TCU to cover the 9.
TCU is going to win by 20 plus.
Give me TCU to cover the 9. I've got a bet in on it. Where else are we at? Let's go into Saturday, boys. The moneymaker day of the year, Georgia and Clemson. I already said I got Georgia to cover the 13.5. I've been watching this game for about 2 weeks. Been sitting at 14.5. Went to 14. ETN news came out. Roderick news came out. Got it down to 13 in a hook. I took it like a moth to a flame. Give me 13.5 points with this Georgia team. I take them to cover.
I'm an intermission too a little bit. I like the under in that Georgia game. I think that if this game does get out of hand, I think that means Clemson did not score points. I think that if it's a close game, it's going to be low scoring. If this game gets out of hand, that means Clemson's offense could not score on us.
I love betting Georgia unders in general, so
I could see a 31-7 game and put us right. 48.5 points. That's 24 points apiece. That's a lot for these two teams to face off head to head.
Yep. Penn State, West Virginia. Don't have a bet in.
I like Penn State right here. I know that West Virginia team. It's just namesake right here. You see a West Virginia team that's been very over the past couple of years, being only +8 against Penn State. And I know Penn State won a lot of close games. Offense was not very high scoring. This is a defensive football team right here. Drew Aller. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna ride that name until I die. No Diddy. No homo. But at some point, he's going to take off, and this Penn State team is going to start scoring points. They know that this is a 12-team playoff now. They're no longer just sitting there fighting. Oh, we can go, 9-3 and just sit here around, number 10 and finish the season like they do every year. They're going to try. They're fighting for a higher seed now. Like, this is a serious fight for them. Are they ever going to make it in the top 4? Probably not. Not with Ohio State and, Michigan in their way. Right now, they know they have a shot. So I think this year they're going to really, really take a big step.
No, I like that a lot. I don't really like the 8 number.
8's kind of weird.
8's weird. I don't really like it, but
I'd also go under 51.5.
I like the
big number
as well.
Yeah.
Let's keep on going a little bit. We got Iowa playing at home against Illinois State. The old Redbirds coming to town. Iowa's a 22.5-point favorite. And the over-under is set at 41 points. I'm an automatic take Iowa under guy at 41 points. That's such a stinky number.
I would also, honestly, I would take Illinois State plus 22.5 if I had to pick.
If I had to
pick, I would take it.
I love it. I love it.
Iowa scoring, this game is going to be 17-3 at the end.
Where else are we at? There's a couple more.
I cannot believe. Okay, hold up. I cannot believe you just skipped Vanderbilt versus Virginia Tech, because this is going to be a fun game right here. I've been on Vanderbilt's train. I root for Vandy. They're an SEC team that has no competition with Georgia, and I want them to be good. I think there was a couple of years ago, they start like 3-1 because they faced like Hawaii and then some other shit teams to start the year, and they started the season off high. 13.5 to a Virginia Tech team that I fucking hate, that I feel like is not very good at all. I would not put a bet on it, but honestly, I feel like that is a huge number.
It's a big number.
That is a big number. Like Vanderbilt, Virginia Tech.
I just don't know what Vandy has. I gotta see him play.
I know. That's the big. Now Nate Johnson. Yeah. I'm gonna say that name 37,000 times on this podcast over this season. Nate Johnson's my hero. Yeah, friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod.
Who was the old Vanderbilt quarterback we were talking about for Heisman? Then he got a concussion and disappeared.
Mike White.
Mike Wright. Yep. Mike Wright was the guy that we talked about, and we were like Mike Wright for that was the year they went like 3-1 to start the year.
Yep.
And then he had a concussion and never played again. It was so much fun. Love Vandy.
Oklahoma State, 9.5-point favorite at home against South Dakota State. 9.5 points. That's a lot of points against South Dakota State. I don't know what Oklahoma State has. I'm scared of it. I'm not putting a pick on this. If I did, I'm leaning South Dakota State to cover that 9.5. And I like the over 54 in this game. Yeah,
I mean, Oklahoma State's returning Alan Bowman. I think Alan Bowman was one of the better quarterbacks in college football last year. I know South Dakota State's good, but 9.5 against a team that's in the top 25 in college football.
And then maybe my favorite bet of the week. Florida catching 2.5 points at home against Miami. Give me Florida money line.
I agree 1,000%. I'm trying to sit here and think about some smart ass comment I could make against Miami, but I cannot come up with something. Miami is not good at football. We have established that over the past couple of years. I cannot believe they're still. Are they still ranked in the top 25 right now to start this season?
I don't know. They might be.
If they are, then it's such a damn shame because they cannot fucking win football games to save their lives. I love that. I love that with Florida. I'm not gonna say I'm a Florida fan. Do I think Florida's gonna impress a lot of people this year? Yes. I think Florida's a lot better football team than what they get credit for. I like Graham Mertz though. I like the weapons they have on offense. Like I do think that, and their defensive side of the ball is great.
No, I agree. I mean, that's an automatic take for me. I love Florida money line here. If there's one thing about this Florida team and about this Florida fan base is that playing Miami at home in a Week 1 game is going to get them. Oh my boy, dude, this gets them up in the morning. This game, if Florida wins this game, this will feed families for weeks.
Mm-hmm. Florida has to be the biggest like in-state rivalry, and I know we have like Texas A&M. Like we have a couple like big in-state rivalries. The pride that Florida takes against beating Miami and beating Florida State is insane. I mean, obviously, Alabama, Auburn, Georgia Tech was a lot more than what it used to be. I feel like it's just the power of three teams down there, three teams that are just like always just like competing and like who's the best team,
and they're always competitive.
Yeah, always
with each other.
All three of them are always very competitive teams. If Florida wins this game, you're 100% right. And even going into this game, it's going to be a big deal for Florida.
Yeah, this is going to feed families. I'm telling you. And I know Florida's going to get out of bed for this game. 3:30 kickoff, prime time. I love it. Next game on the list: Nebraska at home, 27.5 point favorite against UTEP. Give me the over 49.5.
Nebraska has a new quarterback this year, right? Or am I wrong? Who's Nebraska's? Oh, it's
Dylan Raiola.
It is Dylan Raiola. Yep, it is. I'm sitting here thinking about Wisconsin with Miami's old quarterback. Tyler Van Dyke is at Wisconsin. So yeah, Dylan Raiola is Dylan Raiola's gonna be a stud. That's Georgia, Kirby. I don't blame you. I don't blame you for missing out on too many people. I saw the summer game or the spring game highlights from him. Patrick Mahomes. It's insane. It's crazy.
Can't blame him. He got his bag.
Yeah, that's right. And his dad played there. Good for him.
Let's see. Bunch of stinky games.
A whole bunch of stinky games. I'm right in the middle of them.
Bunch of stinky games coming here.
There's
a couple more here at the nightcap that I do like.
Ooh, Texas A&M, Notre Dame. You touching anything there?
Yeah, I've got A&M money line.
At -1 right now, it's -152. Did you catch it at that number?
What's it at now?
A&M's favored by -3, which is surprising to me.
Yeah. I got it when they were at 2.5.
I like the under.
I got that one early.
As bad as it sounds, the 46.5.
I took that one last week. I got them at 2.5, but I took a money line. But I took it when it was at 2.5.
I think Notre Dame's going to be the disappointing team of the year.
I agree.
I don't like that quarterback whatsoever. I think Riley Leonard is absolute dog crap. Sorry, Riley, if you're listening to the podcast.
Yeah, friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod, Riley Leonard.
It was before that comment.
Friend of the pod, dog shit.
Sorry about it.
Sorry about it, Riley. Boy had like 3 weeks last year. Everybody was like, oh, Riley Leonard for Heisman. He ain't shit.
All right, where are we at?
Oh, I'm trying to find. We got some stinkers right here. I'm over here at Arizona, New Mexico. Arizona -31.5. Cool.
I held off because I didn't want to buy into the hype, but I'm thinking about taking Tech -20.5 against Georgia State at home.
I was sitting there just now looking at the same, but I think it's pretty solid.
It's a lot of points, but it's better than 21.
Yeah, it's a good number. It's a good number to land on. I would almost take the 20.5, and I would also take the under.
There's a nightcap game that I'm on.
If Florida State scores that little points against Tech, there's no way Georgia State's scoring points on Tech.
No, it's not a nightcap game. It's the Sunday game. I've got LSU -4.5.
Is USC?
Against USC.
I like that.
Yeah, I got LSU -4.5. I think I think they beat them by multiple scores, to be honest with you. So I like that. That's an automatic take for me. I'm probably going to double down on that at some point after this. After these bets clear, coming from Friday or Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, because I've got quite a few out there.
No, I
But yeah,
agree. I think the LSU team is very good. I forgot about this, honestly. I know every single year in week one we always get that Sunday game and that Monday night game.
mm-hmm.
And just looking at this reminding me, obviously that Monday night game does not seem very enjoyable. I think a couple of years ago
No,
though we got Georgia Tech Clemson and Clemson beat them by like 40 and it was not very fun either. But like it's still football, obviously. Who knows? Boston College might go out there and beat Florida State.
yeah,
But no, you're right. The Sunday game is actually going to be a very fun game, and it's a matchup we don't see very often. LSU USC matchup is very like I feel like that's very unique.
no, I'm here for it. I love it, and I'm gonna be laying it with the Tigers. So,
Who is
but yeah,
USC's quarterback this year? Is it that
it's
kid that threw that six touchdowns in the bowl game this past year?
yeah, Miller Moss.
Miller Moss, yeah, Miller
Yeah,
Moss.
great player.
Yeah, dude came out and balled out in the bowl game. I never knew who the
Yeah,
fuck he was, but he did his shit.
USC just lost so much.
I agree, and LSU is honestly returning a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, outside, it's kind of hard to say that because they lost Heisman winning quarterback and one of the best wide receivers in the country. But like on the defensive side of the ball and like all the other positions, I feel like LSU is returning a whole lot of talent.
They are.
I mean, what Will Campbell, the tackle, isn't that his name? I think they have like the number one tackle in the next year's draft. Will Campbell,
That big white boy.
Yeah, big white guy, and then Harold Perkins on the other side of the ball.
Stud.
Yeah, so they got a lot of. I mean, that's what LSU's known for in the past, though. Like before Jaden Daniels came around and Malik Neighbors was there, they were always physical, defensive. You know, that was their brand of ball. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that about covers all the bets. So and we're in for a good week of college football, Jake.
We in for a good week. We back on the pod. We back on the pod.
Back on the pod, baby. We're gonna be in here.
I will tell you right now, I'd be terrified to be a 30 rack of Busch Light this Saturday.
I'm
gonna tell you, the old lady done told me. She told me she was gonna go tan on Saturday. I said, guess what, honey? You go tan all day. Cause I'll be sitting right here in this living room, Busch Light cracking open every single game I can watch. And guess what? I'm gonna have a rack of ribs in the oven. I don't have a smoker because I live in an apartment. My bad. I can't cook on a smoker. I live in an apartment. But I'm gonna get me some ribs going. I might cook me some wings up. Oh, I'm ready. This first full Saturday. Oh, I'm pumped.
Besides us just being on a local sports podcast, that's the widest thing that's been said in this entire episode.
I think the local sports podcast might be the widest thing. Now, I think if I added on 0 viewers, it makes it even wider.
Yeah, but if you also add in the fact that we're running a local sports podcast and we got ribs in the oven.
No sauce. No
season.
No season.
Salt, pepper, garlic.
Yeah, salt, pepper, garlic powder. Maybe a little bit of paprika if I'm feeling a little bit of spice.
Seems about white.
Oh, man. Oh, that's good stuff right there.
Well, that does it for me there, Jake.
That's a good podcast. We're back. I think we're all the way back, honestly. So
good pod.
I mean, next time we're on here, hopefully we have a whole new revamped thing. I got a 3-day weekend. I will say, Kenny, I will be out of town next week. But first episode back, I'm already making up excuses. I'll be out of town a couple days next week, so if we want to work our way around that, we can.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. I'll be out of town this weekend, but I'll be back next week.
Okay, so we'll figure something out. We'll hopefully get another episode out next week. Hell, if we got to, we'll pre-record that thing. We'll act like we're in the future. Talk about it.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. Right. Did you see that Georgia game where they won predicting the future? I don't know, but we'll figure something out. But it'll be fun. Yeah. If anybody's listening, thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for watching the YouTube. Again, this is old school stuff. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, y'all can find us there. Y'all can find us on the YouTube, Peach State Tailgate. Hopefully we'll get back to the groove of things now that college football's around. And we also need to start getting some NFL talk in, too, because we did not mention the ball at all. Thank you, Chargers, for taking Taylor Heineke off our hands, because he sucks ass. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Arizona, for trading us Rondale Moore for Desmond Ridder and then cutting him.
Yeah, we're making progress, because Rondale Moore got, hopefully, a couple more years of control left. After breaking his knee in half. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll find out. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned until next episode. Peach State Tailgate, Revamped, episode 1. Okay, kid, you got it. And end it
Well,
off.
well, we appreciate y'all. If anybody's listening, if anybody's checking us out, like I s- like, well, now serious talking to me. Uh, Thank you, Siri, for listening. I appreciate your viewership. Check us out on the socials. We'll be a little bit more active on the socials moving forward. Like I said, little revamp show. Trying to figure out a couple things, but yeah, it's gonna be fun. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to making content, and talking some ball. Appreciate y'all.
Stay tuned.